In 1975, ABC's Wide World of Sports traveled to Norway for the European Gymnastics Championships. There, we discovered an unknown 13-year-old Romanian who would become the darling of the '76 Olympics.
And here's the Tiger, 13-and-a-half-year-old Nadia Comaneci, coming up for her first event in a major competition. And you might see a new star in women's gymnastics right here from Romania, Nadia Comaneci.
They barely knew her name, but Nadia knocked them dead.
Wow!
Since Nadia, the European Championships have been a coming-out party for future world and Olympic champions. In 1989, 16-year-old Soviet Svetlana Boginskaya won her first all-around title. Today, she returns to the European Championships, trying to join Nadia as the only other three-time all-around champion. Will some young upstart come along and steal her show? Only one can carry the title of European champion to the Olympic Games in Barcelona. The cornerstone of the Cathedral of St. Peter and St. Paul was laid in 1434, when Nantes was the capital of the Duchy of Brittany. Over 550 years later, it's one of the most prosperous cities in a different land, France. Nantes is a city of many faces, one of the arts and of industry. It's home to one of the busiest ports in all of France, and one of the country's most prominent universities. But all else seems insignificant on a quiet afternoon on the Loire River. Nantes is located over 200 miles west of Paris, but only 20 miles east of the Atlantic Ocean. Today, the finest female gymnasts from across Europe have come to the ancient capital of Brittany for an important competition on the road to the Olympic Games in Barcelona. We're inside the Palais de Sport for the all-around competition at the 1992 European Women's Gymnastics Championships. Hello, I'm John Neighbor. When ABC's Wide World of Sports first covered the European Gymnastics Championships, it was in 1973 to showcase the Olympic stars Olga Korbut and Ludmila Terestcheva. Well, since then, we've stayed with the event because it's offered some fantastic gymnastics, and it's introduced us to some of the great names in the sport, most notably in 1975, an unknown 13-year-old from Romania, her name Nadia Comaneci. Now, Kathy Johnson, what stars or surprises, if any, do we expect here?
John, for the most part, we have established gymnasts here, including one of the most celebrated gymnasts in recent history, two-time European champion Svetlana Boginskaya of the former Soviet Union, but competing for Belarus here. She just recently lost her world all-around title to American Kim Zmeskal, but she's still a favorite here because of her style and consistency. She has several challengers, but two to watch, Gutsu competing for the Ukraine and Gojian of Romania. Both of their routines are quite a bit more difficult than Boginskaya, but also a lot more risky. So it's hard to say what the outcome will be. It's a great tune-up, however, for Barcelona.
The Olympic Games in Barcelona will see most of these former Soviets competing on a unified team. But at this meet, for the first time in history, these ladies will be representing their individual republics. And Bart Connor, what effect will that have on the overall outcome of the meet?
Well, there'll certainly be a very dramatic effect on this competition here, and it's bad news for the rest of the European competitors. Now, what I mean by that is under the rules, each country is allowed to send a maximum of 3 athletes. So in the past, the Europeans have had to deal with 3 fantastic athletes from the Soviet Union. Now, with the breakup of the Soviet Empire, to compete here today are 13 former Soviet athletes representing 5 different republics. So it's the deepest field of competitors we've ever seen.
And Bart, of the 46 athletes who've already competed in the earlier sessions, our current leader so far is 16-year-old Vanda Hadarian from Romania.
And she displayed some of the most impressive form and amplitude, also very consistent with scores in the high 9/8s. And Ukrainian Tatiana Lysenko had 3 excellent events, including this dynamic floor routine, which scored a 9.95. Unfortunately, while attempting an extremely difficult mount sequence on the balance beam, the bad luck she had experienced at the World Championships resurfaced.
And Kathy, that dropped Lysenko below Hadarian in the standings.
Then in the first rotation of the final session, Svetlana Boginskaya turned in, as always, an exceptional vault complete with her trademark landing. Scored a 9.937, only to be bettered, though, by just thousandths of a point by Gina Gojian of Romania. This is certainly a gymnast to watch for in Barcelona. Watch the power and explosiveness on this vault.
And that thunderous landing put the 14-year-old Gina Gojian ahead of the defending European champion Svetlana Boginskaya in the standings. Now, when the all-around athletes compete in the vault, the uneven bars, the beam, and the floor exercise, we go now to the uneven bars and Tatiana Gutsu from Ukraine.
She has everything she needs to score well here. 2 big release moves, nice transitions, and an eye-opening dismount. And nobody knows that better than Boginskaya. She usually has wonderful amplitude on this first release move right here. Fly away with a half twist. She has one more release move. Beautiful reverse hecht. Great dismount. Watch the height on this. It's a double layout, way up above the bar, and a great landing.
So the 15-year-old Tatiana Gutsu proves that she could be a contender for many medals at the Barcelona Games.
Take a look at her right leg on these giant swings. When she first came on the international scene, she used to bend her leg badly. You can see they've really polished up her form. This is the best she's ever looked. She'll be ready for Barcelona.
She certainly has the stuff, Bart. The marks from the judges, a 9.950 on the uneven bars for Gutsu. We'll be back with more. Gina Gozhan on the uneven bars. She is our leader after the first rotation in the final session here.
And John, she goes one step farther than most gymnasts in terms of difficulty. She has a very complex combination coming up right here. It's 2 release moves back to back, but watch this second one. Oh, a little bit of trouble with the transition down to the low bar. Unfortunately, she lost her rhythm. Her dismount is a double layout. Very difficult. Oh, she opted for a double tuck. She really needed the more difficult double layout, but I think since she got off rhythm early in the routine, she decided to play it safe.
Let's take a look once again at that release combination. There's only one other gymnast in the world who will dare to do this, and that's Kim Kwang-suk. She's the world champion in 1991. The second move is 2 moves in 1. Reverse hecht right to a front flip. That's the most difficult combination being done in the world today.
So the score for Gozhan's routine, a 9.887. Now, talking about the difficulty in gymnastics naturally leads to a discussion on scoring and the task of rewarding risk fairly. How subjective is scoring in gymnastics? Kathy Johnson explains.
Anytime the outcome of a competition is determined by subjective judging, it's open for criticism. But blaming the judges is not always fair. For the most part, they're just following the rules in this code of points. I believe the revised scoring system, which was brought into effect right after the Olympics in 1988, is once again outdated, and it doesn't allow the judges to really differentiate the good routines from the exceptional routines. Throughout the 80s, the most difficult vault was this Yurchenko vault with a full twist. It was and still is worth a 10.0 in the code of points. Recently, just a handful of gymnasts began performing the same vault but with a double twist. Obviously more difficult, yet it's given the same value as the easier, more common vault. The gymnast on the right performed the more difficult, seldom seen double twist with a slight form deduction and a hop on the landing. The gymnast on the left performed the single twist flawlessly and therefore scored higher. It would make more sense if the most difficult vault was worth more to begin with, so that even if there are deductions, the score should be more fair. For a routine to be worth a 10, it must meet basic difficulty requirements, showing skills of varying difficulty from A to D. If all of these value parts are met, including good composition and execution, the routine is worth a 9.6. The bonus point system is the most important part of the equation and was designed to award up to an extra 0.4 of a point for originality and/or extra difficulty. The level of difficulty in gymnastics has advanced so quickly that the bonus system doesn't work anymore. It's become too easy for all of the gymnasts to receive the bonus points. Therefore, it doesn't reward the gymnast that goes above and beyond the standard and does the most difficult routine.
Next up, Svetlana Boginskaya from Belarus. She's trying to be the first woman since Nadia Comaneci to win 3 European all-around titles.
And this is a perfect example of the scoring system problems. She has only one big skill coming up right here, and yet it's enough for this routine to be worth a 10.0. Her obvious strength is her impeccable form. Look at the straight legs, pointed toes, always a beautiful line. Very few deductions in this routine.
Now, Kathy, as you mentioned, this is a perfect example to point out the problems with the scoring in gymnastics. This routine has nowhere near the difficulty as the routines of Gozhan and Gutsu. And yet, as you can see, with perfect form and style and execution that Boginskaya has, her score will probably be on a par with those much more difficult routines.
Ideally, a good scoring system should reward those who combine good form and superior difficulty.
The score for Boginskaya, 9.937. That moves her into the lead after 2 rotations.
Morning breath.
World of Sports continues with the European Women's Gymnastics Championships.
As we enter the 3rd rotation here at the European Championships, Tatiana Gutsu is preparing for the beam, and many feel this 15-year-old is the most promising of all the gymnasts in the Ukraine, a land which has produced many such champions. The Soviet flag was raised a record 18 times at the Olympic Games for the legendary Larisa Latinina. It flew 9 more times at the Olympics for Lyudmila Turistcheva. But they represented more than just the Soviet Empire, as each came from the hidden power within Soviet gymnastics, the Ukraine. The Ukraine was the 2nd most populated republic in the USSR and stood on the frontier with Eastern Europe. It was known as the breadbasket of the Soviet Union, and it was also an industrial power. But the Ukraine also possessed a strong national consciousness and an independent history, and those played a prominent role in the breakup of the Soviet Empire. Now, Ukrainian gymnasts want their colors to be known around the world.
We want to be first, as the Soviet Union was. We want the Ukraine to always be first, not the 3rd or 5th best in the world, but the first.
For many years, the finest athletes from the Ukraine and all across the Soviet Union came to the National Training Center outside of Moscow to live and train. It is here that the athletes who will represent the unified team in Barcelona are preparing for the Olympic Games. But after the Olympics, all the gymnasts will return home to their new independent nations.
There are many changes in life, in politics, in financial matters. I will have to leave my friends and coaches that helped me. Now everyone will move to her own republic. Before, everyone was together as one family. It's a little upsetting that this has fallen apart.
When the dismantling is complete and the athletes have returned home, they will leave behind friends and the most dominant era in gymnastics history. So Gutsu prepares to mount the beam. She is currently in 2nd place halfway through this competition.
And this is one of the most difficult balance beam routines in the world. Very impressive with respect to the big tricks, and this is one coming up right here. A standing backflip with a full twist. Most gymnasts can't even do that on the floor, much less the balance beam. She has another difficult pass coming up right here. It's 2 layout somersaults in a row. Well done.
The Ukrainian Federation appears to be surviving the breakup well. They already have their own national training center located in Kiev, financial sponsorship from the West, and, of course, the obvious commitment to excellence.
They will probably thrive in the future, but keep in mind they'll still compete as a unified team at the Olympics in Barcelona, continuing to show more difficulty throughout this routine. She has an extremely difficult dismount sequence coming up here. She tumbles down the entire length of the balance beam, all the way through to a very difficult full twisting double back. Most of the gymnasts only do a double back. She adds that extra twist. Very risky routine, particularly in an all-around competition that is this close.
Well, 20 years ago, Olga Korbut and Nancy Thies were the first to do a standing backflip on the beam. Gutsu adds a full twist. Now her dismount sequence is 3 back handsprings through to a full twisting double back. The full twist happens in the first flip. This is a very rare combination. By the way, that full in will be done by 2 Americans in the Olympics in Barcelona.
Shannon Miller and Dominique Dawes.
Something to look forward to. So the mark, 9.925 for Gutsu on the beam. That sets the scene as Svetlana Boginskaya gets ready. In order to maintain her leadership position, she needs a 9.912.
She is very well known throughout the world, particularly for this event. As always, her excellent form. This is her first tumbling sequence. 2 layout step out. Ah, she changed it. I have never seen her do that combination before. That won't be a deduction because there was no break. But she certainly showed she's a true veteran, being able to make the correction mid-air. Boginskaya is very unique, and so is her career. Most people don't realize how fragile a gymnastics career is and how important timing is. She was just coming into her own for the 1988 Olympics, but was really at her best in the interim years at the World Championships. I really believe she's putting off retirement to enjoy one more Olympic Games. And at 19 years of age, she's still a favorite for Barcelona, along with America's Kim Zameskel. She really is a pleasure to watch as she perfects every movement. Her dismount is a round-off double back. And we've said this over and over about this gymnast. She doesn't have the highest degree of difficulty, but her poise and presence are impressive.
Kathy, you mentioned that she changed this tumbling pass. She does a back handspring. She's supposed to do 2 layouts. There's one. Now watch on the second one. She puts her hands down on the beam. Amazing that she made that correction without giving away to a balanced break. This is the double backflip, and few people in the world know how to spot and plant the landing as well as she does. That'll help her in Barcelona.
And Boginskaya receives a 9.937, which will keep her in the lead at this point in the competition. Now let's go immediately adjacent to the uneven bars, where Cristina Fraguas from Spain, 15-year-old out of Madrid, is about to take her turn.
The most impressive aspect of this routine is her form. She has a toe point that most gymnasts only dream of. There's her one release move.
The head coach of the Spanish team, Jesus Carballo, has put together a really strong program, which includes, by the way, Sonia Fraguas, Cristina's sister, and they really expect to win a medal or 2 this summer in Barcelona. And how many times has that happened? A world championship or an Olympic competition, the hometown kid pulls off a great surprise and wins at least a bronze medal.
Bart, it's sort of like hosting a party. You always put your best foot forward when the show comes to town. We wait for the judges to calculate the marks for Fraguas. And with one rotation remaining in the women's all-around competition, Svetlana Boginskaya is still on track for a 3rd consecutive title. Fraguas got a 9.825, which moves her into 4th place. Glorious period in the history of Brittany. We now begin our final rotation in the European Gymnastics Championships, and the battle lines are set between former Soviet teammates, now rivals on different republics, Boginskaya and Gutsu. But first, Bulgarian Snejana Ristikieva on the bars.
And though she's not in contention for the all-around, she's performing a skill we have never seen done by a woman before. It's right here. It's a 1.5 twisting release move. Unbelievable. Only a few men do that skill on high bar. Here's her 2nd release move. You can see she has a few form deductions. Full twisting double back, highly difficult routine. Very original.
What a big trick this is. This is called a def. It was invented by a French gymnast named Jacques Def. It's a flip and 1.5 twists before she regrabs the bar.
Ristikieva earns a 9.887 on the bars. Over at the floor exercise, now chalking up is Tatiana Gutsu. In light of all the hardships since the fall of the Soviet Union, we asked her what role sport plays in her life.
Gymnastics is my life. Because of all the changes in my country, it's good that I'm in sports.
Obviously, the independent states are still supporting their athletes. They're great ambassadors for their new countries.
Gutsu is currently in 2nd. This is her final effort of the day.
She has a unique first pass. Watch closely. It's a double layout, which we have seen, but she splits her leg in the first somersault. Right there. That's really something the judges look for. Some originality, as well as difficulty in the tumbling line.
has upgraded the difficulty in the routine and added this pass. It's 2 whip backs into a double back. Now, anybody who's seen Kim Zemesco compete knows she does 3 whip backs. So they could actually be in a tumble-off in Barcelona. Now she will do the more difficult piked full twisting double back at the end. Oh, a little short on the landing. That will be a slight deduction.
This opening tumbling pass was really impressive. Most gymnasts are happy just to make this around without landing on their nose. Watch what she does. She splits her legs in the first flip. Nice originality. Her last tumbling run was the full in pike. She's very short of rotation, but that's the kind of difficulty it's going to take if she hopes to win the gold in Barcelona.
Well, she's certainly been giving it her best effort. The judges give her a 9.95. Here comes the 14-year-old Gina Gaujon, who's currently in 3rd.
And I watched her practice this routine. I have never seen anyone move faster in my life, except maybe Carl Lewis. Terrific opening tumbling run. Now, I know it looks like we sped the tape up, but this is her actual speed of movement.
Great music for it, too.
That's traditional Romanian music. It's the pan flute.
It's amazing she can expend so much energy on the dance and still come up with very difficult tumbling runs. She's winding up again for her final tumbling run. Full twisting double back.
Doesn't she remind you of that battery commercial? She just keeps on going.
A very entertaining routine by Gina Gaujon. And though she can't win the gold here, she is gaining valuable experience. Gaujon is one of a couple of gymnasts the Romanians are grooming for Olympic glory. Our drama here continues when Svetlana Boginskaya performs her final routine in her attempt to equal the great Nadia Comaneci by winning her 3rd all-around title at these championships. When we return. There's Gina Gaujon awaiting the official marks, and she gets a 9.937 from the judges. That puts her into 2nd place behind Tatiana Gutsu. Now here's Svetlana Boginskaya. She's our leader at the end of the 3rd round. A strong score here, a 9.925, will win her 3rd European all-around championship.
This is a dramatic new routine with a Spanish flair. Has a magnificent presence. She's very much like an actress as well as a gymnast. Certainly commands the attention of the audience. Tumbling run. Tuck double back. Oh, no. Very uncharacteristic.
I can't believe it. You never see her make that kind of mistake.
And after the
is very nice and is not necessarily in top condition to do the highest level of difficulty. Her last tumbling run, she was warming up a double backflip to a punch front. But here she was clearly shorter rotation and tired. Still can't believe she put her hands down. Boginskaya just does not do that.
A big shock, and the mark for a disappointed Boginskaya, 9.325. So your all-around champion is the shy Tatiana Gutsu. The final results from the all-around competition at the 1992 European Gymnastics Championships, Gutsu wins the gold. Boginskaya drops down to 5th place, and interestingly enough, athletes from the Ukraine take 3 of the top 6 places. So as a result of the high-flying performances by the Ukrainians like Gutsu, perhaps we're witnessing the beginnings of a new gymnastics dynasty. For my partners, Kathy Johnson and Bart Connor, this is John Neighbor saying so long from Nantes.